Today, I'm breaking this book down into 9 lessons that cover its entire framework, so by the end, you'll understand exactly why DeMarco thinks the traditional plan most of us were taught is, in his words, a great deception. Lesson 1. The Great Deception. DeMarco opens the book with a hard claim. The standard advice to go to school, get a stable job, save diligently, invest in index funds, and retire comfortably at 65 isn't actually a wealth plan. He calls it, get rich slow, and argues it's really just a slower, more socially acceptable version of staying average for most of your life. Here's his math. If you save consistently for 40 years and retire with $1 million at 65, you've technically become a millionaire, but only after sacrificing your most energetic, healthy decades doing it. He points out that during major downturns, like 2008 or the COVID crash, people who had been diligently saving for decades watched a huge chunk of their net worth evaporate right as they were approaching retirement, with no time left to recover. The deception, in his view, isn't that saving and investing are bad. It's that society sells this plan as the only responsible path to wealth, while quietly ignoring that it only works if you're willing to trade away your youth, your health, and several decades of your most active years for a payoff that might not even arrive when promised. DeMarco isn't anti-saving. He's anti-pretending that saving alone is a wealth strategy rather than a survival strategy. Lesson 2. The 3 roads, sidewalk, slow lane, and fast lane. DeMarco argues that everyone is unconsciously driving down one of 3 financial roads, whether they realize it or not, and each road has its own mathematical formula determining where it leads. The sidewalk is for people with no real financial plan at all. Their wealth equation is essentially income plus debt, since they spend everything they earn and then borrow more to fund a lifestyle they can't actually afford, chasing status and instant pleasure with no thought for tomorrow. This road reliably ends in financial disaster. The slow lane is the traditional path almost everyone is taught. Get educated, get a secure job, live below your means, save and invest steadily, and retire decades later with a reasonable nest egg. It's not reckless like the sidewalk, but DeMarco argues it sacrifices your most valuable years for a payoff that arrives only when you're too old to fully enjoy it. The fast lane is DeMarco's alternative, building a scalable business system that generates significant income while you're still young enough to actually use it. It requires far more risk and effort up front than the slow lane, but it compresses the timeline from decades to potentially under 10 years. The entire rest of the book is essentially a manual for how to actually build a fast lane life, rather than just admiring the idea of one. Lesson 3. Wealth is a trinity, not just money. Before diving into business strategy, DeMarco resets what wealth should even mean, because he believes most people are chasing the wrong target entirely. Society sells wealth as a yacht, a mansion, or a garage full of exotic cars. DeMarco argues that real wealth is actually a trinity of 3 things. Family, meaning strong relationships with the people you love. Fitness, meaning your health, energy, and vitality. And freedom, meaning the ability to choose how you spend your time and pursue what you actually care about. His point is that someone can hit every traditional marker of financial success and still be poor by this definition, exhausted, isolated from their family, and trapped by the very business or career that made them rich. He's seen plenty of people chase the fast lane purely for money and end up wealthy on paper while losing their health or their relationships along the way, which he considers just as much a failure as staying broke. This lesson matters because it reframes everything that follows. The entire purpose of building a fast lane business, in DeMarco's framework, isn't to accumulate the biggest number possible. It's to buy back your time and energy fast enough that you can actually enjoy family, fitness, and freedom while you're still young enough for any of it to matter, rather than deferring your entire life to some date decades in the future. Lesson 4. Wealth is a process, not an event. One of DeMarco's recurring frustrations is how the media portrays sudden wealth, lottery wins, viral startups, overnight celebrity, as if these are the norm rather than the rare exception. He argues that nobody becomes a millionaire overnight, even when it looks that way from the outside. Behind almost every visible success is a long, often painful process that simply wasn't shown to you, years of learning a skill, absorbing failures, and refining an idea before it ever became visible. DeMarco frames your current financial life as the direct output of a chain reaction. Your beliefs shape your choices shape your financial decisions, and your financial decisions shape your net worth. If you want a different outcome, the leverage point isn't forcing different decisions through willpower alone. It's examining and changing the underlying beliefs that are quietly generating those decisions in the first place. This is also where he introduces the idea that a real wealth plan needs four components working together: a roadmap, which is your overall financial direction and beliefs; a vehicle, which is the actual business or system that will generate your income; a road, which is the specific market or industry you operate in; and your speed, meaning how aggressively and efficiently you execute. Skipping any one of these four elements, in his view, is why so many people work hard for years without their financial situation actually changing. Lesson 5. Why most businesses fail, the NECST formula. DeMarco argues that not every business idea can actually put someone on the fast lane, even if it makes money. He introduces a 5-part formula, NECST, to test whether a business has real wealth-building potential, or whether it'll just trap its owner in another version of a job. Need means the business has to solve a real problem or fulfill a real need that people are willing to pay for, not just something you personally find interesting. Entry means there should be some barrier to starting it, real skill, real setup time, or real capital required, because businesses anyone can copy in an afternoon rarely sustain pricing power or profit for long. Control means you need genuine ownership over your income stream. If a single platform, like a marketplace seller account, could shut you down in minutes, you don't actually control your business. Scale means the business needs to be able to grow without your personal time being the limiting factor, since a coaching business or a small physical shop scales far slower than a piece of software or digital content. And time means the business has to be able to make you money even when you're not actively working, whether that's while you're asleep, on vacation, or focused on something else entirely. DeMarco's claim is blunt. Break any one of these 5 principles, and the business will likely fail to deliver real fast-lane wealth, even if it keeps you busy and modestly profitable for years. Lesson 6. You are the vehicle. A significant part of the book shifts focus away from business strategy and toward the person trying to build the business, because DeMarco believes most failures come down to the person, not the idea. He calls this section Owning Yourself First, arguing that your habits, mindset, and self-discipline are the actual vehicle carrying you toward wealth, regardless of which specific business you choose. This includes brutally honest self-assessment, cleaning up bad habits that quietly drain your time and energy, removing toxic relationships or headwinds that hold you back, and treating your own time as the most valuable, non-renewable fuel you have, far more valuable than money itself, since money can be regenerated but time cannot. DeMarco is particularly harsh about distractions and excuses, arguing that most people who claim they don't have time to build something are actually choosing entertainment, comfort, or low-value habits over the harder work that would actually change their situation. He also pushes the idea of becoming a learning machine, someone who treats continuous self-education, particularly skills directly useful to their fast-lane business, as a non-negotiable daily habit rather than something reserved for school. In an age where nearly all the information needed to build almost any skill is freely available, DeMarco argues lack of access is rarely the real obstacle. The real obstacle is whether someone has built the discipline to actually seek that knowledge out and use it consistently. Lesson 7. The Commandments of the Road. Once someone has chosen their fast-lane vehicle, DeMarco lays out what he calls 5 commandments that determine whether a specific road, meaning a specific market or business model, will actually generate fast, scalable wealth. These overlap closely with the NECST formula but get applied specifically to picking the right industry and business model up front, rather than evaluating an idea after the fact. The commandment of need asks whether you're solving a problem urgently enough that people will pay real money for the solution. The commandment of entry asks whether the barriers to starting are high enough to keep out casual competitors, while still being something you personally can overcome with effort and learning. The commandment of control asks whether you genuinely own the business, free from total dependence on a single platform, client, or partner that could end it instantly. The commandment of scale asks how many people the business can realistically reach without you personally needing to show up for each transaction, since rental real estate, software, content, and distribution systems all scale far more efficiently than a business built purely on your personal labor. And the commandment of time asks whether the business eventually decouples your income from your active hours worked, so that it can keep generating money even while you sleep, travel, or step away entirely. DeMarco argues that picking a business that satisfies all 5 commandments from the very beginning saves years of wasted effort compared to building something popular but structurally incapable of producing real wealth. Lesson 8. Compound interest doesn't create millionaires, it preserves them. This is one of DeMarco's more controversial claims, and it directly challenges a piece of advice almost every financial guru repeats. That compound interest, invested consistently over time, is the primary engine of getting rich. DeMarco's counterargument is that the math simply doesn't support this for most people within a normal working lifetime. Earning a typical market return on typical savings contributions takes 30 to 40 years to produce $1 million, which is exactly the slow timeline he's trying to help people escape. His distinction is between using compound interest to become wealthy versus using it to stay wealthy. DeMarco argues that the people who actually get rich quickly almost always do it by building or selling a business, a concentrated, leveraged asset that can generate enormous value in a short window, not by passively contributing to a retirement account. Once that wealth has actually been created, compound interest becomes an excellent tool for preserving and growing it further, which is exactly how he uses it himself today. This isn't an argument against investing. DeMarco still invests heavily. It's an argument against mistaking a wealth preservation tool for a wealth creation strategy and expecting compound interest alone to compress decades into years. If your goal is genuinely fast wealth, in his view, the heavy lifting has to come from a business or asset capable of rapid value creation, with investing serving as the second stage that protects and grows what that business already built. Lesson 9. Speed, Execution, and Burning the Business Plan. In the book's final section, DeMarco shifts to pure execution, arguing that most aspiring entrepreneurs overthink and underact. He famously tells readers to burn the business plan and ignite real execution instead, not because planning has zero value, but because perfecting a business plan in isolation, without real customers or real feedback, often becomes an elaborate form of procrastination dressed up as productivity. He emphasizes treating pedestrians, ordinary people going about their daily lives with real, unsolved problems, as the richest possible source of business ideas, far more valuable than chasing trends or copying other entrepreneurs. He also warns against what he calls hijackers, distractions, toxic influences, or even well-meaning friends and family who quietly discourage ambitious action, and argues these need to be removed or managed deliberately rather than tolerated indefinitely. DeMarco closes with the idea of choosing monogamy over polygamy in business, meaning total focus on one strong idea executed at full intensity, rather than splitting attention across several mediocre ventures at once. His own example is the limousine website he built and refined obsessively for roughly a decade rather than chasing 5 different side projects simultaneously. The book's final message is that none of the previous 8 lessons matter without speed and follow-through. Understanding the fast lane intellectually changes nothing on its own. Only consistent, focused execution, sustained over years rather than weeks, actually moves someone from the slow lane onto the road DeMarco spent the entire book describing. So if you take away one thing from this video, take this. Getting rich fast isn't about lottery luck, inheritance, or some secret hack nobody told you about. It's about consciously choosing a different road, one that demands real risk and real effort up front, in exchange for compressing decades of waiting into years of focused work. DeMarco went from broke, dumped, and living with his mom at 26 to retired by 37, not because he got lucky, but because he understood exactly which road he needed to be on, and then committed to it with real intensity for a decade straight. Which of these 9 lessons hit you the hardest? Let me know in the comments.